Part 3. What did the other superpowers do about it? In November 1945, a detachment of Soviet submarines went on an unusual mission. But the Soviet sailors were not destined to perform an unusual feat of arms. Most of the way, the boat sailed on the surface. But when the first of them dived in a given area, 68 degrees south latitude, it was immediately attacked by 10 flying saucers, which could not be countered by torpedo weapons. I had to leave. The entrance to Agartha and Hitler, who was there, were well guarded. It is only unclear by whom. A disappointing report followed to the Central Committee and the Supreme Commander-in-Chief about the failure to fulfill the combat mission of the party and the Soviet government. But imagine the surprise of the sailors from the crews of the boats when they were attacked by incomprehensible objects that they, having gone through the entire war, had never encountered before. Upon their return, all crew members and persons admitted to the organization of the campaign were required to sign a non-disclosure agreement with state secrets for the rest of their lives. Therefore, we do not mention any names. Admiral R. Byrd himself flew out on reconnaissance. The submarine, under the cover of guard ships, tried to approach the entrance to Agartha in a submerged position. But suddenly the squadron was attacked by German aircraft and flying discs, as R. Byrd wrote in his reports, emerging from the depths of the ocean. The carnage ensued because the carrier-based cover fighters could not resist the attacking aircraft of an unknown enemy. The personnel were exposed to an unknown atmospheric phenomenon that led to mental disorders up to clouding of consciousness. 2 destroyers were sunk, an aircraft carrier was seriously damaged, and several aircraft were destroyed. Losses among the personnel were the heaviest. About 400 people died. Orders came from Washington to withdraw from the battle and return to base. Naturally, no information about the results of the scientific research expedition to the shores of Antarctica appeared in the press. They preferred to forget about it, taking, and here we are united with the Americans, which in general is correct, a non-disclosure agreement from all participants. But the inquisitive journalistic public did their professional job, and soon some details of Operation High Jump began to leak out. Russian Operation High Jump. Declassified U.S. government documents and witness testimony from former or retired U.S. Air Force personnel to be presented as evidence of ongoing incursions by unidentified aerial objects at nuclear missile sites over several decades. These will be cited to support the claim that nuclear missiles were inexplicably disabled while a UAP object silently hovered nearby. 4 former officers involved in such encounters will discuss these and other incidents at the National Press Club and urge the U.S. Congress to investigate and hold public hearings. Former Air Force officer Robert Salas was the on-duty commander of an underground launch control facility assigned to Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, on March 24, 1967. He has publicly stated over a span of 25 years that all 10 of his ICBMs became inoperable, and that 8 days earlier, on March 16, 1967, a similar incident occurred at another missile launch control facility. There was an incident reported on October 4, 1982, at a nuclear missile base in Usov, Soviet Ukraine, where a group of nuclear missiles became activated while a UFO was observed hovering above the missile launch facility 234. According to Colonel Boris Solikov, an expert in radio waves and radio astronomy at the Russian Ministry of Defense, dozens of soldiers working at the base saw up to 5 UFOs. The control panel of the base's nuclear missiles reportedly displayed a spontaneous illumination of all displays, and the top-secret access codes to the deadly missiles appeared spontaneously on screens at the base. This incident was considered serious enough that it prompted a 10-year investigation of UFOs and aliens by the Soviet authorities. They demonstrated they can activate and deactivate the nukes of the nuclear superpowers, USA and Russia. Some people even claim there's a secret war between the third power and the current superpowers. This explains the missing planes and ships in the Bermuda Triangle and crash retrieval programs. Why U.S. covert groups are shooting down these UFOs. Why don't you know about it? Media is controlled. Not hard to hide the truth when you own the media. All the media is owned by 6 corporations. They made a secret agreement in the 80s. The last sighting of a gigantic spaceship prompted Ronald Reagan to sign an agreement with the Kremlin rulers. In a super-secret pact, more secret than the A-bomb or the Normandy invasion, President Ronald Reagan and Soviet Party leader Gorbachev decided to join forces to defend planet Earth against the attack of hostile spaceships. The credibility of the Mutual Defense Alliance was confirmed by a high-quality short military paper that reached a Western journalist through a casual job in the Kremlin. The Mutual Defense Alliance commits both the U.S. and Soviet Russia to unite all their nuclear missiles, spy planes, manned and unmanned spacecraft. The official statements of the U.S. government that they don't know what these things are a lie. They have known for many years. Part 4. Hoaxes, UFO propaganda. Just in case you believe PSYOPs are not a real thing. Site of recruitment for PSYOPs. It's a big PSYOP running for many years, trying to get us to believe in space aliens. They want us to look up, when in reality, we should be looking down under. It's a diversion tactic, a camouflage. Known hoaxes are the case of George Adamski, the disinformation agent Richard Doty. The MJ-12 documents were debunked. You can read more about it in Jack Valley's book, Revelations. Dr. Leon Davidson, open letter. The Central Intelligence Agency, formed in 1947, took the public image of the flying saucers created by secret flights of UAP aircraft and artificial meteor research, etc., during the 1947-48 period. In 1950, the CIA had set into motion a plan of encouraging public belief in interplanetary travel through a psychological technique of guiding the release of planted information, ordering secret tests of authentic military developments which gave misleading impressions to observers, etc. It delegated the Air Force to act as the official investigator to stave off public inquiry. It secretly sponsored the formation of saucer study groups and Contact C, including NICAP, under T. Townsend Brown, with whom, incidentally, I have voluminous correspondence. The CIA set up many saucer publishers, sponsored the publicity received by Adamski's books and others, and sponsored the of saucer articles in 1952 in Life, Look, etc. The CIA also conducted hoaxes played upon Adamski and Fry, including the former's desert contact, train disappearance, etc. The motives of the CIA can best be described by Alan Dulles. He has recently retired from his position as leader of that agency. He is quoted in Stringfield's book as saying that, by use of the injunction, if necessary, he would prevent anyone from testifying in court concerning Adamski's, because maximum security exists concerning the subject of UFOs. The atom bomb drive of 1957-58, which led to the U.S.-Russian English ban on clear bomb testing, only recently broken, was the only worthwhile object that of the CIA-sponsored flying saucer movement, which is as yet publicly readable. Something very interesting he is talking about is artificial meteors. A lot of people have seen them, and you can find many videos of them. He says, the launching of artificial meteors from shaped charges carried aloft by V-2 rockets over New Mexico starting in December 1946. This led to the green fireballs, the Skyhook balloon project, and other high-altitude research. In this letter, the general ordered the name of the project changed at once from Project Sign to Project Grudge. The name Project Sign had been given, under CIA auspices, to help spread the idea that saucers were interplanetary bearers of messages of wisdom. This general, who was not in on the secret but saw that the Navy was sending its secret aircraft to taunt the Air Force bases, used the name Grudge to connote the fierce inter-service rivalry existing then. The CIA scheduled a big upsurge of publicity for saucers in the spring and summer of 1952. The public kickoff was the Have We Visitors from Space article in Life, April 1952. This article had been under preparation for a year with help from the government, according to Ruppelt. The green lights, or artificial meteors used earlier in New Mexico, were developed into a new technique, the blue flash. This was first tried over Seattle, Washington in May 1952. See front page of NY Times for May 12, 1952. It was then used for the outstanding blue meteor of September 12, 1952, over Washington, D.C., and simultaneously over 4 adjacent states, including Maryland and West Virginia. By fall of 1952, the CIA had laid out its plans for the landing and contact stories. The warm-up for this had been the fabricated and planted stories about little green men, such as the famous lecture at the University of Denver in March 1950, described in Scully's book, Behind the Flying Saucers, page 5. This was a psychological test and showed that about 50% college-level people would believe a well-presented story. The Des Verges, Florida Scoutmaster landing story in 1952, and the Mayer Lynx landing story from Germany in the summer of 1952 were part of the same pattern. These were all planted by the CIA. No actual human contacts were yet reported. Link to the letter is in description. Letter. In his book, Operation Trojan Horse, John Keel explores the idea that many UFO sightings and encounters are not what they seem. Keel suggests that these phenomena are part of a larger pattern of deception by ultraterrestrials, beings who can manipulate matter and our senses. He argues that these beings have appeared throughout history in various forms, such as fairies, demons, and other supernatural entities. Keel's work highlights several hoaxes and deliberate deceptions within the UFO community. He emphasizes that many UFO reports and encounters are not genuine extraterrestrial events, but rather manifestations of these ultra-terrestrial beings. Keel's theory challenges the traditional nuts and bolts extraterrestrial hypothesis and suggests that the UFO phenomenon is more complex and intertwined with paranormal and supernatural elements. Here's what Jack Valley discovered in his deep research in the book Revelations. The latest revelations of Lear, Cooper, or Lear's alleged informant, Robert Lazar, about flying saucers at Area 51 have become the major topic of debate at meetings of UFO researchers, while actual UFO sightings, which happen by the dozen every month, go on without anyone seriously studying them or even bothering to go look at the physical traces. Someone is using the believer's eagerness to know the horrible truth about UFOs. Someone has manufactured a story of little aliens, just as someone has invented UMO and exploited Pontoise. As we will see 168 special effects in the third section of this book, the process continues to work because it pushes some obvious psychological buttons. Clever intelligence operations are structured with concentric layers like an onion. The data we have already reviewed show that the top level of the onion is designed around the official assertion that there is no UFO phenomenon at all. This is the level most skeptics and most scientists have chosen to believe. In my opinion, the evidence is very strong that a genuine UFO phenomenon exists, but serious, dedicated, and aggressive research is required to peel away this first layer and to find the real facts. The second layer is exemplified by MJ12. It claims that there is a large conspiracy to hide the information, but that the government, the wise white father in the White House, knows the truth. In his kindness, he does not tell us, presumably because he wants to protect his children. Why Bob Lazar was lied to. I found something very interesting. The interview of Bob Lazar by Jack Valley. Notice here two things. There are inconsistencies with the reason why Bob Lazar left the project. In this interview, he says the reason is that he didn't feel good about the project. In other interviews, like for example in the Joe Rogan podcast, he says the reason is they removed him because they were tapping his phone and found out his wife was having an affair, and that would make him emotionally unstable, so they had to remove him from the project. Also notice the neo-Nazi references of the documents Jack Valley received. The interview from the book Revelations. From then on, Lazar told me, he would be called on an irregular basis, and he would report to a certain place where he would be picked up by a bus that had blackened windows. The bus drove him to a facility in the desert where a series of slanted hangars were cut into the mountain. Inside these hangars were 9 solid, pewter-colored flying saucers. Did you ever watch them fly? I asked Lazar. Once, from 100 to 200 feet away. The underside was glowing blue, but otherwise, there was no ionization around it. What kind of work were you doing? We were back engineering the propulsion system. They gave me 205 Revelation S briefings on that. A lot of it didn't make sense. What do you mean? Well, for one thing, there was no theoretical work at the facility, and much of the physical research was inept. They told us that a team had cut up one of the reactors by sawing it off in two. When they tried to run it, the thing exploded in their faces. That took place in May 1987, before they expelled the Russians from the project. Indeed, that was absurd. No one in his right sense would have done this. A project manager would have stopped it. Lazar agreed. It did not make sense, nor did his own presence there make sense. He said, "I'm no research physicist. If those were really alien disks, they should have had the best scientists in the country working on them. Instead, they gave us these briefings and just told us to try anything we liked. Nothing was written down. What did you have in the lab, on your workbench?" "I had a digital voltmeter," said Lazar. "That's all?" exclaimed one of my friends. "I also had an oscilloscope. That's it." Where were the X-ray inspection systems, the multi-channel analyzers, the signal generators that are the standard tools of the high-tech trade? Again, we were hitting a wall of absurdity. Robert Lazar's experience had been pure theater. "When did you stop working there?" I asked him. "In May 1988. "Wait, maybe that was May 1989. Which one was it?" "I don't remember. I'm confused about that." The confusion was too gross to be accounted for by simple distraction. Do you ever have the impression that your memory of these events is worse than could be expected? "My memory may have been tampered with," he said rather sadly. "What do you mean?" "There was a sort of infirmary in the back of that facility. They gave me all kinds of tests there." "Can you describe these tests?" 206. The mystery lingers. Well, for one thing, they took an awful lot of blood from me. They said it was necessary because of the things I was working on. What else? They made me drink a glass full of a yellow liquid that smelled like pine. And it seems that they hypnotized me several times. I never found out why. How many doctors were there? They were women, a female doctor and a nurse. Who paid you? Naval intelligence. Why did you stop? I didn't feel good about the project. What form did the briefing papers take? They were thin booklets, letter-sized pages. There were over 200 of them. What kind of document control system was used? There was no document number on them, if that's what you mean. What agency issued them? There was no indication of origin. It was straight text, take it or leave it. What classification level? There was no secret stamp on it. Were any of the pages marked with words like confidential or no foreign? Nothing. That too was absurd. Any document in a classified project is tracked by a control system. The booklets in question, which presumably describe the most secret project in history, would have been tightly controlled. As it was, Lazar could have rolled one inside his shirt and legally walked off with it. After all, didn't he obtain a sample of famed element 115? I asked him about that too. Element 115 is not radioactive. Evidently not. I had it in my house. I didn't think super heavy elements were stable, I said. Most of them aren't, but there's a zone of stability for higher numbers, above 110. Here again, Lazar was displaying accurate knowledge of atomic physics, a kind of knowledge that would not be casually available to the layman. In fact, an article about super heavy elements, published oddly enough in the May 1989 issue of Scientific American, when stories about Lazar began surfacing in Las Vegas, said that physicists expected higher elements to be relatively stable. But what can stability mean for elements that are so elusive that the largest pieces of scientific equipment known to man have to be used either to smash heavy nuclei together or to tease them in cold fusion mode? The answer is that when the experimenter is lucky, they last long enough for the products of the decay to be picked up in a blinking instant by extremely fast detectors. One of the products of the decay is an alpha particle, and Lazar, who says that he sells alpha particle detectors to Los Alamos, should know about this. So when he described a piece of element 115, which he had stored in his house, in an empty can of film, as it turned out, we had reached another impasse. With all his sincerity and the honesty of his answers, Robert Lazar was providing no useful leads. There was still one topic, however, on which we were anxious to have an answer. So I asked him the same question I had asked Lear, Cooper, and numerous others. Have you ever seen an alien? No, came the answer. We had been chasing rainbows again. John Lear came to my house for dinner and said to my face that his informant Dennis had seen an alien. And you're Dennis. Lazar moved uncomfortably around in his chair. Well, there was this time when a coworker of mine said, if you really want to see something, walk with me down this corridor and don't stop. I looked through a door with a wire mesh in the glass, and I saw the back of the head of something, with two military types next to it. It could have been anything. It could have been a doll. After being sighted by the guards at the Nellis Air Force Base perimeter, as I have described in the prologue, we had dinner at the Rachel Cafe. A man was going from table to table, carrying a strange object, a boot-shaped tangle of dried grass and bits of little branches with a hole at one end. It's an alien bird's nest, he said. Comes from another planet. That statement was as likely to be true as anything we had heard that day about the 9 flying saucers in the secret hangars of the Nevada base. I had given my private address to Lazar's associates. Within days, I started receiving strange letters from a colonel in Las Vegas, who invited me to spend 1 month, all expenses paid, with a group of 12 people who were preparing a major belief change in America. My background, he wrote, would be a definite advantage. The incentive for joining the group was to establish contact with the aliens. When I ignored the first letter, it included the logo of the group, a neo-Nazi design with an eagle clutching the SS symbol, and a bunch of thunderbolts. The colonel sent me a second letter, even more specific. If you are sincere about contact with them, we can discuss it, but only if there is no government involvement. To show it meant business, my correspondent included detailed information. Longitude and latitude of a certain UFO sighting, dated May 1943. I had the feeling that the problem was entering a new and dangerous phase, and that feeling would soon be strengthened by the bewildering series of new revelations that came to light after Lazar had been discredited. Bill Cooper, an American conspiracy theorist, initially believed in the existence of extraterrestrial beings and claimed to have seen top-secret documents while serving in naval intelligence that confirmed their existence. He shared these beliefs in his book, Behold a Pale Horse, where he discussed various global conspiracies, including those involving aliens. However, later in his life, Cooper began to doubt the existence of extraterrestrials. He came to believe that the UFO phenomenon was a cover for advanced human technology and government experiments. He suggested that the alien narrative was being used to manipulate and control the public, diverting attention from real issues and secret government projects. Cooper's shift in belief was influenced by his growing skepticism of the information he had previously encountered and his realization that many UFO sightings could be explained by human-made technology. He continued to warn people about government deception and the misuse of power until his death in 2001. 47 Roswell. Movies start to have aliens. Start of PSYOP mainly with the help of Hollywood, CIA organizing ufology meetings, creating UFO cults. The government denies it and admits it at the same time. I recommend you read the book by Jack Vall, Revelations. In it, there is a chapter called Dangling Carrots. It explains why there never will be official disclosure. Here's a quote from it. As far as I was concerned, either the Pentagon believed it had genuine physical evidence, in which case it should be brought out for everyone to see, or someone was playing games, in which case I was not going to be used as a pawn, like those who had been eager to propagate every rumor, no matter how uncorroborated or absurd. Hynek agreed. We should not be a party to deliberate misleading of the public, he said to me, and we will not take the bait. But if there is any chance of uncovering genuine evidence, let's pursue it behind the scenes. He laughed as I added, we could call this investigation the case of the dangling carrots. A theory. The CIA is doing that massive PSYOP. It was infiltrated by Nazis in the time Operation Paperclip, a secret U.S. intelligence program initiated after World War II. This operation aimed to recruit over 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians, many of whom were former members of the Nazi Party, to work for the U.S. government spread the idea that UFOs are interplanetary. Space aliens propaganda is a PSYOP to cover up the Germans and the remnants of an antediluvian civilization with high technology. Those two groups are possibly working together. It's pretty successful. A lot of people want to believe that UFOs are aliens from outer space. It's been going on since the 50s with the help of Hollywood. If you can make a person want to believe in something, nothing can convince him it isn't true. Remember the poster I want to believe? Part 5. The Atlantean Cabal. Who is Graham Hancock and his theory on screen? Graham Hancock is a British author known for his controversial theories about ancient civilizations and human prehistory. He has written several books, including Fingerprints of the Gods and Magicians of the Gods, where he proposes that an advanced civilization existed during the last ice age and was destroyed by a cataclysmic event. According to Hancock, the survivors of this civilization passed on their knowledge to hunter-gatherers, which led to the rise of ancient civilizations, such as those in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Mesoamerica. There are surviving remnants of antediluvian civilization Atlantean Cabal, which sided with the Third Reich. They have high technologies, and it is very likely they influence what is happening on this planet. They are working with a breakaway civilization. There are many races. Tall whites are one of them. Little people are another. I will make another video on little people later on. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Charles Hall is a former U.S. Air Force weather observer who claims to have encountered a group of extraterrestrial beings known as the Tall Whites while stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada during the 1960s. According to Hall, these beings are tall, pale-skinned, and have a humanoid appearance. He describes their behavior, culture, and technology in his series of books titled Millennial Hospitality. Hall's accounts include detailed descriptions of his interactions with the Tall Whites, their advanced technology, and their secretive presence on Earth. He claims that the Tall Whites have been working with the U.S. government and have a base in the Nevada desert. Paul Hellyer and the Tall Whites. Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian Minister of Defense, has made several public statements about extraterrestrial beings, including the Tall Whites. He claims that these beings have been working with the U.S. government for decades. Hellyer has stated that the Tall Whites are one of several alien species that have visited Earth and have been involved in various secretive activities with the U.S. military. Hellyer has also mentioned that these extraterrestrial beings are concerned about humanity's use of nuclear weapons and the potential for global conflict. He believes that the Tall Whites and other alien species have advanced technology that could benefit humanity, but they are hesitant to share it due to our aggressive tendencies. In 2014, Iran's semi-official Fars news agency published a report claiming that the U.S. government has been working with extraterrestrial beings known as the Tall Whites since 1954. The report suggested that these aliens had influenced U.S. foreign and domestic policies and were involved in a secret regime ruling America. The report was based on documents allegedly released by Edward Snowden, which were said to provide proof of this extraterrestrial agenda. My theory is that the tall whites are Atlanteans. They are one group who are definitely working behind the scenes with human groups and intervene with what's happening on this planet. Conclusion. Which makes more sense? Aliens from outer space or a nation from Earth, which was known for developing such technologies? If they had that tech, it means that they had huge technological superiority. They could keep other nations from discovering the tech. They can't win an open war, but they can definitely influence us. Like, for example, stagnating our science to slow our progress so they can keep us under control. So what do you think it is? Aliens, like in the Hollywood movies, coming from thousands of light years away, or something that's been living besides us for a long time? Or maybe a breakaway civilization? What do you think? Tell me in the comments.